Namaskar, good afternoon, welcome to SNU Reel and you are watching Unscripted. You know, Unscripted is a program where we talk to our guests in a very candid manner and our respected guests, distinguished guests, brief us about the courses we offer in SNU. We have with us today Professor Monish Chakraborty, Head of the Department, School of Architecture and Planning, Sister Nivedita University. Welcome Professor Chakraborty to our program.
Thank you.
Professor Chakraborty is a very famous architect and urban planner. So, not only about architecture as a subject offered by SNU, architecture as a subject of interest, we can have different questions to him and he will be, I suppose, he will be pleased to answer all these questions from us. In fact, sir, first I would like to ask that the word architecture reminds us of the historic structures, famous styles like Gothic style, Roman style, Mughal structure, what we used to listen. If you can kindly brief us about the different facets of architecture.
Yes, architecture is primarily about shelter. And in order to do a shelter, you need to have, you need to know the knowledge, both scientific knowledge as well as the cultural milieu that you are in. So from time immemorial, starting from the cave down to the present day, the architecture has evolved, being shaped by various factors, be it cultural, be it geographical, depending on where you are actually building your shelter. And the time phases are very kind of documented very well in the European context. But in our context, we had the prehistoric sites like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and the medieval sites, and also in Europe, starting from the Greek and the Romans, followed by the medieval period of Romanesque, and then getting into a Renaissance time frame, which is about liberalization from this otherwise very solid architecture as we find in the medieval times. So the entire European architecture evolved primarily on account of the context, the cultural context, the political context. So a lot of factors actually shape architecture over a period of time. Why Taj Mahal has come into place, why the Gothic architecture has been aspiring to be bigger and taller. So these are all shaped by reasons, be it economic, be it social, be it cultural, and so on.
And in fact, as taking cue from what you have said, this is one subject which is a perfect amalgamation of art and technology.
Yes, yes, indeed. And that makes it it's essentially looking into the requirement of human beings, their behavior, their culture, their disposition, their ergonomics, the way they move, the way they communicate, the kind of space that they're habituated with in cultural context. So it has to be coupled with how to implement that and how to build that for a longer period of time. So there, how to sustain the roof, how to sustain the wall becomes very important. And the progress of architecture is generally kind of considered as how from a small space, how we have increasingly, if we come to the present day, how we have managed to earlier our Garbhagriha, which is the temple, which was very small because the technological know-how was not available. So it was a trial and error method of building some pillars, post and lintel, and then trying to see whether it can sustain the weight of the slab, and so on and so forth. So from there we got now a tent structure which can really have uninterrupted columns and spanning large spaces. So that is how the architecture has evolved technologically. And even the functions got changed. It no longer remained only a preoccupation of housing, shelter. It also went into other typologies like residential, commercial, museums, shopping malls, and so on and so forth. So
yes, and as you have mentioned about a shopping mall,
Yeah.
I have another question that it comes into my mind, that the growing trend of urbanization all over globally and in India also, do you think the field of architecture is becoming more and more important with this growing trend of urbanization?
Yes, I mean, urbanization has seen, it was a natural phenomena of people coming and inundating the urban area for jobs and opportunities. And there we find the cities and the urban areas were becoming stressed in terms of infrastructure, stress in terms of shortages of space, the growth of slums, the growth of degradable environment, and so on and so forth. And I would add that it's also the quick profit-oriented development that kind of followed suit, because to take advantage of this growing demand of various things, be it commercial, be it for housing, be it for infrastructure. So it also had an impact on the quality of architecture,
Yes.
on the quality of spaces that we are developing. So today, I always call this development as an impatient money, development which is for impatient money. And due to impatience, people are doing it very quickly,
Yes.
and that gave birth to a kind of a looking back to more durable architecture of the past. So people has become a little more conscious, a section of the people has become more conscious about how do we kind of revive some of the classical architectural styles and methods of construction, which were much more durable, rather than today's, where buildings tend to only last for 2 decades.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I suppose till now what sir has said, we have a little idea about the subject architecture, about the facets of architecture. Now, sir, let's come back to our course and courses offered by Sister Nivedita University. I suppose there are many students and their guardians are very willing to know about the courses offered by SNU. So, if you can brief us about the courses.
I was practicing for the last 3 decades, and I was also going and teaching as a visiting faculty to various places in India, both in Calcutta and in Delhi and Ahmedabad, and some places abroad. But then I was, for the last 2 years before I was joined in Sister Nivedita University, it was actually when our Chancellor of Sister Nivedita University requested me whether I will be willing to head a department and kind of form a department of reckoning in the Eastern India. And that was a real challenge, and which I very well taken up. And I must say that I am very indebted to our Chancellor because he has given me a complete free hand in order to evolve this department,
Yes.
which already is showing signs of formulating 2 undergraduate courses, and there are many in the pipelines.
So, if you can give a brief details about the subject which we are offering here, the courses.
Well, right now, we are in the second year of our establishment of the School of Planning and Architecture. We have these 2 basic undergraduate degree
Courses, yes.
courses. One is B.Arch, Bachelor in Architecture, which is for a period of 5 years, and it's been approved by the Council of Architecture based in Delhi, which is the only organization in the country which get affiliations to such courses, and we got that course affiliations from them. And the other is a planning undergraduate course, which is called B Planning, Bachelor's in Planning, which is for a 4 years course.
Right.
And the first year, it's a common course between architecture and planning, and then it kind of gets specialized into planning and architecture. But though architecture is for 5 years, it essentially, the study parts goes for 4 years, and then you have to go for a 6 months training with some firm or architectural practice, which is part of the curriculum. And then you come back from there and do your independent research thesis, design thesis, and that kind of completes it into 5 years. So essentially the study part is for 4 years. Of course, you are guided during your thesis by faculties, but the 6 months of that 5 year goes into practicing in a commercial
that gives the students exposure
to practical, because architecture cannot be taught only through books.
Absolutely.
It is a very it reads a lot of observation and analysis, and we are very fortunate.
Practical oriented subject.
Yes, and we would like to have this connect. And Sister Nivedita University already are into various architectural projects themselves. And like we are augmenting our infrastructure as a university, which 2 more buildings is going to come up, and a very renowned architect from Calcutta and India, Sri Dulal Mukherjee, is designing to make a complete iconic campus for this, which is the process is already on, and the work is about to start next month. And so we have within SNU projects in the field of education, in the field of hospitals, in the field of sports academy, which the Department of Architecture, the faculty, and the students will also get exposure right there.
So it's a kind of in-house facilities. That means students are getting these exposure, getting this kind of practical experience within the campus itself.
Yes, it's actually theory and practice, and the practice, fortunately, by the huge enthusiasm our Chancellor has, as well as our Vice Chancellor, they would really like to see this architecture, which has been a kind of a neglected part in Eastern India, to see whether we can fill that space as an educational institution of integrating theory and practice, which is a very need of the hour.
Yeah. And sir, the next question what I'd like to ask, that I suppose most of the students have these common questions, that what are the career prospects after completing this course?
You know, I have been of late seeing students with the so-called great career prospects like computer science and other engineering. They are finding it difficult to actually get jobs. And architecture is a core subject, as we just discussed at the beginning.
Yes.
Because we all need shelters. And urbanization, India is still an urbanizing country.
Yes.
And it's a huge amount of work waiting to happen. It's happening already. We are kind of transforming our country from a developing country to a developed country. And in that process, architecture is a very important component for that transformation. And I have not seen anybody who has done architecture or urban planning is disengaged from employment, rather very actively engaged in employment. And architecture is like law or medicine, because you can practice on your own.
Yes, I was just about to